Okay, round two. So there's two things I'm going to cover. I'm not going to drag this on forever, but this is a third little chunk of like recent work that we've done. But it's going to bring up, the reason I'm going to show this mostly is to talk about where I think future directions are for VR and how we're kind of pivoting our company around because of it. And then the other thing I want to do is show you the camera operation of both the Jaunt and the Ozo on how that looks, both for camera operation as well as the post environment, which is pretty slick actually, and at least on the Jaunt side. The Ozo side I haven't explored post yet. So let's see, so this is just talking about recent things. These are some of the little rabbit holes that we drop down into in our work, and we do a lot of environmental capture. So this is using terrain data, GIS data that's readily available, using photogrammetry, which is really what I want to talk about, which is a way to kind of acquire the world in very high resolution as a 3D model, laser scanning, and using drones. And we just upgraded our drone last week and to do more with photogrammetry. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, these are all the kind of topics of what we're doing. And Greg just finished doing a lot of light field shooting for Otoy 2, which is very interesting stuff. But anyway, this is kind of more about full dome, some of the original techniques that we applied to full dome years ago. And I'm not going to go into this deeply, but it's just shooting panoramas, shooting HDRs, and creating photogrammetry and stitch video also. But now I don't have to do some of these tricks because we have these great new cameras. And these are just ways to take environments and capture them very faithfully for the full dome screen. And again, remember, full dome screen is not just a curved screen, it's just a portal to recreating space if you do it properly. So that's what we've been trying to do, is do a very accurate job of bypassing the screen in effect. And some work is actually great in a curved screen, it's designed for that. But what we're trying to do is just let you surpass the screen back into a space. I'm not going to show you this, but we did a little film a long time ago that we kind of tried to investigate some of these techniques. And this is using Gigapixel, which David mentioned earlier, but just very high resolution capture. Our original idea was actually to capture environments both in extreme detail and resolution, raster resolution, image resolution, as well as geometry. And that way we could offer sets as a leasable business. So actually our original idea, which we never really pursued, was we would do Vasquez Rocks and we would do Sepulveda Dam and all these places around LA that are always shot for commercials and such. And we could maybe offer an alternative to sending a crew out. And this is an example of the GIS data, which you can download. This is the Eastern Sierra, but you can download all of New Mexico at pretty high resolution. Came from the space shuttle originally. There is now, if you are interested, there's a website called opentopo.org, and OpenTopo gives you laser scan LiDAR data, which far exceeds this resolution, though you can do quite a bit with this. And this is that level of resolution applied to Zion Canyon as an overlay. And that affords a lot of opportunities for visual effects and in full dome. So this, we did a gigapixel shoot of the Grand Prismatic in Yellowstone, and then we combined that with terrain data, and we did a fanciful cut to kind of show where the magma is, which is scarily enough right below the frame, which was rather shocking. But in any case, photogrammetry is a technique that my business partner's been kind of pioneering for years, but I think we're entering this new realm of, this new stage of photogrammetry being very accessible for people, more so than it ever has been. And all this means, it's a big word, but it just means taking reference photography and constructing 3D models from it. So it's an alternative or a complement to using laser scanners, which are very accurate. Photogrammetry is pretty accurate. It's certainly accurate enough for visualization and for film work. And as I say, it's kind of the beginning of what I call the grand digitization of the world that's going to occur, because Project Tango from Google, you may know, and Intel's RealSense are basically embedding small LiDAR scanners into your phones and tablets. And within a few years from now, it'll be commonplace. And as you walk around a room, you'll just be building a 3D model wherever you walk. And if you have an opportunity to look at Tango next time that Google is showing at NAB or wherever, it's worth investigating, because it's really shades of what's coming. And that, of course, affords all kinds of things, either for visual effects or for visualization. So anyway, let's see. And I'm not going to go into some of the detail for this, but this is a really early project. We applied it to on an IMAX film, Tom Hanks film on the lunar programs, Apollo programs. And this was a trench in the Apollo 15 program that they shot. Luckily, they shot panoramic imagery, and we were able to handle the original Hasselblad eggs and scan them, and then use image stitching. And they never, I'm glad they were thinking ahead, but they overlapped all their images. And then we made these panos, and then we rebuilt the nature of the Hadley Ryle, which is this trench. Nobody ever went down in. So here's our model, and here's the reconstruction of it with their original photography. And then we had a camera that flew through. So it was really a great way to kind of explore terrain that they were never able to, but do it photorealistically. The only problem I had with this in the end is that they added a whooshing Foley sound, which I don't think would happen on the moon, if I'm not mistaken. But here's another, this is more of an art project I did with Charlie Lindsay, a fine artist, and we did photogrammetry of a lava tube cave in Idaho, and then I scanned this wonderful ancient bristlecone pine and turned it into a particle system in Maya. But it was just an interesting way of taking, kind of abstracting scan data. This was done for the Morrison Full Dome Theater in San Francisco. And this is photogrammetry of the ferry building in the port in San Francisco, solely shot with a DSLR and a carbon pole, and just walking back and forth and taking photos and getting this. So it's really a very easy way now to build facsimiles of the real world. This was one where we did it for a feature film and flew in a helicopter in Waimea Canyon to establish that terrain. And we had an extraordinary resolution, gigapixel pixel resolution. But then we found that wouldn't it be great, instead of with one camera, to do it with many? So we designed this thing and worked with SpaceCam on this. And we brought Canon in, had a big meeting. They were totally ready to give us the 80 cameras and more that were required. And literally, we left the meeting all excited, thought this was just the birth of something really phenomenal. And 1 week later, the Fukushima wave came in and affected Canon and Nikon plants. And they had to say, look, guys, we have other things to deal with. But I would love to go back and readdress this today. We could do it with half the cameras, and we could do gigapixel photogrammetry incredibly quickly. And grid it out, and just, and I still actually may pursue this soon. But here's what it really is just using, again, carbon poles. Here's a comparison. Autodesk hired us to do a comparison of laser scanning against photogrammetry, and then take it through the Maya workflow and see what broke. And I'll tell you, a lot of things broke. They probably still do. But still, it's a fantastic process. And from this, I think if you looked at the demo reel, you may recognize these are the misty kind of columns that you flew past. I was kind of fooling you with some scale issues on this.
So, what are those locations?
This is the tufa, sand tufas, which are at Mono Lake in the Eastern Sierra. They're beautiful. They used to be underwater. I think it's obvious. And then the lake is drained down, of course, thanks to Los Angeles. And these remain, and they're just, they're fantastical forms. This is in Valley of Fire outside of Las Vegas, and that's some really great things there. This, in fact, is a model from Valley of Fire, and if I had more time, I have this on this laptop. I'm not going to bother, but it could tumble around and show you this. So really, really accurate models. The lighting is baked in. That's one of the limitations, of that may change. And then this is the fanciful recreation of taking the terrain data but playing with scale. And that's one thing that's really exciting us right now in photogrammetry, is really dealing with scale issues. We also did a lot of work with David Breashears, who's a famous Everest climber. And then we designed this rig, and he flew all these valleys in the Himalaya. And this work was used recently on Everest, where the team took that data and then brought their own team out and augmented it and created all this. All that you see here is virtual. So really, really nice work that they did there. And we got an Everest trip out of it ourselves. Not all the way to the top, but the bottom, but it was still pretty neat. And then lately we've been doing a lot with Bjork. This actually started about 2 years ago. One of my ex-students, Andrew Wang, ended up doing some beautiful music videos and fell into some really great circles and ended up doing Radiohead's work Atoms for Peace, and then also a number of Bjork pieces. So he's been Bjork's close collaborator for years. Bjork said, you know, I've got a show at MoMA coming up. I'd like to do it as full dome. I'd like to have a digital terrain that I'd like to walk across. And he goes, I know who just to talk to. So he came to us and said, can we do this? Of course the answer is yes. And then we did a little test out in the Mojave Desert with this, but in the end, we were able to generate all this these digital environments for the project. Here we're scouting different lava tubes and such in Iceland, and then the end result is we did a very high capture of this, and this was done with both Faro scanners and with photogrammetry. And this was done, and it was also shot with REZs on the crew. This is the LiDAR scan data, and then this is the photogrammetric. I think that's still scan data, that's right. And then this is photogrammetric data. And of course, in photogrammetry, you get texture acquisition as well. So that's really pretty stunning. And this is the section of the landscape that we recovered. And then here we flew a drone, and you can see the cameras. These are camera reconstructions of where the real cameras were, and then converted to a digital camera. And the ones in the air are shot from a drone, and the ones down below are shot with that same carbon pole that you saw that we use. And this ended up in the MoMA film and other places. And now she's been using the same data on a number of VR pieces. And if we had a Vive here, I'd show you that, but it'll probably be made public. There's actually a new piece that Andy's just now finishing, which I saw a few days ago, that just floored me. And it was one of the most incredible Vive things I've seen. And that will become public probably fairly soon. So that's just now finishing. And this is the final theater that was done, was delivered in at MoMA. And then this is another project not too long ago, about a year and a half ago, done here in New Mexico. And this is through New Mexico Arts Council, I think. Am I getting that right? New Mexico Arts, yeah, New Mexico Arts. And, but anyway, this was a way to elevate or put on stage Navajo artists alongside the renowned Ai Weiwei from China. And this is Bert Ben-Ali, a Navajo artist who did this beautiful fire creation myth mandala. And then we also employed, we went to actually Weiwei's studio, convinced him to participate. And actually I said, by the way, if you don't mind, I'm doing this thing called photogrammetry, and could I have you sit still in a chair for a few minutes for me? And I said, I can make a digital version of you. And he said, oh yes. He goes, I am a sculptor. I know how to be very still. So he did that, and I shot a few hundred images, and I have a digital Weiwei, which is pretty cool. But in any case, this was his contribution to it. It was a sand mandala made with porcelain ground from some Chinese pottery. And then this was an arts event that happened during one evening. And then we made a full dome film specifically for the project called Pull of the Moon. And this was photogrammetry that we did from terrain data, flying a drone, all the techniques I just talked about, to give us a virtual environment. And then, of course, after the dome film was done, I was like, all right, time to move it over to VR. So we re-rendered it as a lat long for VR purposes, and that's another piece that, if you're interested, I could show you afterwards. And then it premiered in the dome, and et cetera. Okay, now I'm almost through all this. So the thing that we then embarked on about a year ago was this notion of trying to capture many of the world's great locations with these same techniques, and do it in a concentrated manner. And we're just now moving into doing this with a number of teams and individuals. So the idea is that we will go to, again, cultural heritage, world heritage sites, and scenic locations throughout the world, but in a way that we can bring it into a real-time environment. Now, what you saw in the demos, this is a sample frame from, and this is a static panorama at the base of Everest with the Everest data and some graphics put in. I think you saw that. And that's fine for cinematic work. And this is just a test, but the idea is that it would be an educational delivery, talking about some of the tragedies that have occurred there. And there is a place for this, but we have since taken some of this data into photogrammetry, into the Vive as a real-time experience. And I've got to tell you, I had a moment of absolute revelation a few months ago when we got some new photogrammetry in. One was an Egyptian tomb where you can walk around in the tomb, because in the Vive headset, it's not a sitting or standing experience, it's a walking experience. So and it has 2 laser emitters that emit. It has a hard drive motor, and it spins out a whole field of infrared laser light you can't see. And then within that, the headset is tracked or receives that through the sensors. So that's one reason why the Vive has that interesting array of detents in the display. Those are the sensors that are finding the infrared light. So in any case, the bottom line about this, though, and then you have hand controllers, so interaction. So you would never stand in one place in a Vive demo. You would actually walk around in a space. So here in this lab, and David will probably have one, I'll say, by the next meeting, the next VR meeting, is that you could have 2 of these transmitters on either end of this, and this entire room could be a space you could virtually walk in. Now, this is now being called, the term for this is called room scale. The reason for that is because if we were to have done photogrammetry on this room, which is entirely possible, we could then put that in the Vive, and I could walk through this room in real scale. So it would feel identical to how it does right now walking through the room. So what we're embarking on is let's take the same techniques but apply it to these remarkable spots around the globe and let you fully interact within the space, probably bring in archaeologists and experts to educate you about what you're witnessing. And you also have the ability to pick things up and interact with them. If any of you do get a Vive unit, email me and I'll send you our 2 demos. We're now distributing them. And we're hoping to show those to you today. But again, next time I'm going to say, maybe, David, you'll have a Vive here. And then you'll be able to see those. But again, that's just one of several demonstrations out there now. Valve themselves, the company that developed the Vive, has some photogrammetry demos that just totally altered me. I was just felt really, really challenged after seeing what they've done. So it's really an exciting thing. I just absolutely, as great as cinematic work is, I just rethought everything after experiencing this. So that's currently what we're up to. And this is a kind of an imaginative environment that I'm working on as kind of a fictitious thing. But in the end, this is going to be what we're doing. Our first attempt at this, not so much for room scale, but for cinematic, was doing a film on Machu Picchu for Jaunt. And this would be a good time maybe to cut over to Jaunt. So this is the Jaunt site. And again, I'd encourage you to approach them. If you email me, I can introduce you. All they want to do is get a lot of great content made. Some of the earlier content was a little rough, but the quality of what's coming out now, I think, is really good. And I can see there's a new Iceland film I didn't know about, so now I'm very jealous. I have to look at that. But in any case, some great film being made. Here's our Machu Picchu film, if you ever want to watch it. You can watch it in a browser, but it's really best to look at in a headset. And then, of course, there's an app that goes with this right here. Get the app. The one thing I do want to make mention to you, though, about is if you go to blog, they just released a really nice document called Best Practices, and I think I have it loaded here. And this is a pretty fine document. They showed this at USC the other day, and you can see, I'm not going to go over this in detail, but you can see all the topics that are covered. And then just good practices. It's graphically kind of simplistic, but again, it will talk about some of the optical flow techniques that they use, disparity maps for the stereo, and then some of the artifacts that you need to look out for or may get. But in general, like I say, it's the best hardware that we have at the moment, and this will go through proper ways to shoot for it. So that's a good, useful document. It's about 2 days old, so grab that at your leisure. Other things to talk about, there's a site called Video. A lot of people put content on here, swimwear, Burning Man, there's Burning Man, etc. on here. A lot of this is going to be that pretty low-end GoPro work that I talked about. You're not going to see amazing work here necessarily, though there is some. So, but this is kind of, for now, kind of a main compendium or kind of repository of a lot of 360 video. Again, not necessarily well done, but still a place to popularize your work or to place your work. Now, YouTube added 360 support, and if I go into, this was the piece that you saw, and of course my res is way, way down. So the trick here is to take it all the way up to 4K. And then the other nice thing is you can view stereo work on this. So now you see the resolution increase quite a bit. I'll just scrub a bit further. And now we're getting it in fairly reasonable playback. And of course, this will handshake with the cardboard unit that you received today. So this is a great way to share content. To be honest, I would probably put things on here at the same time you do video. And video actually will work in cardboard as well, but this is actually, I'm fairly impressed with the compression quality on this. And you can go back to mono or 2D or 3D. Okay, so another thing to know about is YouTube 360, and it's very easy to author for it. You can actually, excuse me, you can just create a standard MP4, and then there's an encoding tool which puts metadata, which as you upload to YouTube, we'll see it as a spherical image. And then the other thing, if you would like to, if you get a headset and you would like to look at the piece that you saw today, if you go to this link on our site, you can download the file that you looked at today. And here I have it on Little Star, which, or no, I'm sorry, that's on Video. Same thing, but you have a plethora of options to publicize your work, I think is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now let's talk about cameras and wrap this up. So here is the thing. If you log on, well, let's see, let's start actually with a controller. Let me apply power to the Jaunt camera. So Jaunt has 3 pieces of software, again, pretty much only designed for their camera, although the stitching can be used with the Ozo. But what I'll do is I'll go into the Jaunt 1 controller, and you can see a little preview that I did earlier today. But this is a really nice little bit of UI, and what it is it's got a little 3D model of the camera, because each one of these has identification. And so if you have a camera module that's having trouble, you can locate it on this and find out what module it is. But the main thing here is what we can do is go to the camera to grid view, and this is probably looking at what I did earlier. I think it is, yep, before you got here. So let's do this. Let's go back to the summary view, and let's do a capture preview. So this shows you all the cameras and kind of this base layout. These are the 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. And then I can do a snapshot, or I can do a short video segment, but I'm just going to snapshot. And now the camera is exposing. It's a pretty dark room. Actually, this is a pretty good camera for low light, to be honest, but this is going to be pretty dark. So it's pulling all the data from all the cameras and uploading it to the laptop here. And then it's going to render out a lat long. So from this, I can save that out right away and put it in a headset on my laptop, right, and display it. So I do get some feedback immediately from this. Now, what we can do at this, and then you can look at the different cameras. So here's a way to see it in grid, again, similar to what we did, unstitched. There's also a list view, and the nice thing about this is I can look at which module, and it'll show me exactly what each camera sees. So this would be a typical stage scenario where I've got some very bright lights. Let's go back to summary, and let's look at the control exposure. And what's kind of nice here is I can go to each camera. So let's, actually I'm going to open this up rather than take it down. To be honest, I rarely use this because the auto of this camera is stunning, and I've never been stung by it yet. But I'm not going to take the time to exactly show you, but what's great about this is you can adjust exposure per camera. Even better, I could adjust it, say, on this module, and then I can go over to this module and say, ramp the adjustment from this across that spread of cameras. So you can get a very smooth transition. It's actually really, really nice tool that they considered. But I can change EV, shutter speed, and ISO on this, which is quite nice, actually. So that's a really fine tool. Let's see, and that's about it. It shows operating temperature, how much free space I have left on my cards, which is handy. And you can do, again, I could do a very basic stitch that's a little better than that preview if I wanted to see how my stereo is working. And I think that's about all I need to show you here. You know, I love the fact there's one button on that camera and it works almost flawlessly. I mean, there'll be cases where it's challenging lighting where you would definitely do this. Any kind of HDR type scenario or a stage, or like right here, I would go and I'd take time to get the adjustment. But for on location shooting, it's never. I mean, we shot Burning Man a few weeks ago at night, you know, during the burn, and it handled well. You know, it clipped the fire, of course, but but it actually did remarkably well. You know, considering on auto. It's nice that they give you this this ability here. The other great thing, I'm not going to do this, but you can format all the cards at once, which is cool. That's the one downside of this camera. It's not unified data acquisition. It's spread out among 24 separate SD cards. So the management of the cards, I would say, is one of the that's the trade-offs that you're making with that module or with that camera. Anyway, but that's the controller. Then there is the media manager, which I'm just going to, I'm not going to go into detail on. But this is where you would then pull the cards out, put them in readers, put it on the laptop, you have a Thunderbolt drive, and you actually ingest the data. And this is going to do it in a fairly meaningful way where it'll assemble shots. I don't have anything to show you here, but what you would see would be a thumbnail, tiny thumbnails of all 24 cameras in a stripe as a shot. And then from that, so over a large number of shooting takes or shots, you'd have a whole grid of all the cameras across. You can find out if you have a defective camera. You could find out any kind of information about each one. You would meta tag it with take, location, etc. And then you it's sort of a pre-ingest, if you will. And it's mostly a backup and ingesting step to put it onto backup drives. So this is the media manager. And then from that, but it's fairly straightforward. And now, once you are ready in media management, once you have it on a drive organized in that fashion, you would then log into cloud. What is it? The John Cloud at cloud.johnvr.com. And so here we are logged in. These are different projects I've been on. And let's look at Burning Man as an example. And now these have all been uploaded. And that is another one of the challenges, is uploading a vast amount of data, because the 24 cameras, and it's not raw data, unfortunately, but it is a lot of data. So you need a pretty good backbone to absorb it quickly. So what I do, actually I'm lazy again, and I take my drive over to Jaunt, and they've got a gigabit connection, and they just hoover it up really quick. But it does require that you have a fast connection somewhere to get onto their cloud. Once it is on the cloud, it's actually a fairly straightforward event. And to be honest, I have hardly had a chance to look at any of this. So I'm not sure what to show you. I'm almost afraid to randomly show you something. But from this, so here's a shot, and you can quickly, oh yeah, this is the center where the man is. It was like a big Leonardo da Vinci mechanism. Again? Okay. Was it when I went into that shot? I did full screen it. I wonder if that affected it. Now this obviously is super low res. It's only meant to be. It just is there for you to see the result of what you have. And then, and here you can see stitching errors as this gentleman was trying to figure out what this was, the camera. In the end, all that will come out during the stitch. This is I haven't processed any of this. This is just got it uploaded. It gave me these really rough previews, both in mono and in stereo. So I could take this actually now and make a clip, which is now a cut clip with trims applied. So here's your in and out points. Let's see, and this is something that Greg must have done. Let's see. I guess they don't do web there. Well, I'm not going to take the time to download it, but this would be another one of the shots made. This would be a classic thing to shoot in stereo, right? We get all this beautiful stereo content, full motion, people around, etc. So anyway, let's see. So then we make clips, and then we upload to full resolution. And to show that, let's see. This was a project I shot at Lawrence Livermore Labs, and this will have final, this is their an assembly lab. So this is now, and again, we don't need to go into the detail, but it's kind of a three-step process. You get a preview, you do your trims and your ins and outs, and then you say, all right, now this is what I want. Go ahead and do the real process, and that's the high quality process. And that it's on the Amazon cloud, but even then it's relatively quick. I think it's about 10 minutes of processing per minute. I could be wrong, or maybe it's an hour. I think the 10 is for the other one. There's basically 3 steps of quality. This is the high. And I'm not going to obviously download these, but if I did, you would find they will give it to you in ProRes. So that's your final working output. It's 3840 by 3840 square, but it's left over top bottom, left over right. And it's a ginormous file. This is probably, 30 gigs for a few minutes or something. So a lot of data space required for working in VR. If you rent the camera from Radiant, I think is the only one who's renting it now in LA, $4,500 a day for the camera. The kicker, though, is the processing. I think they give you like an hour of processing for free, or for the first hour of content, rather. And after that, I think it's $10,000 an hour. I'm sorry. It's actually, the reality is you're...
I like that business. I like that business model. They're onto something.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, if you were totally cold, in the cold, coming over to that camera, yeah, it's probably going to be expensive. But the point, I would just say, talk to John. It's just everybody they work with. It's a different deal that's made. So.
Do you know what the back engine is? Is it their own custom software?
It's all their own custom stuff, and we've helped them on it a little bit on the algorithms. But it's and it does have some artifacts, and again, every camera is a compromise. You'll get optical flow artifacts. You'll get weird little ripplings around fast-moving objects, people, and things. Usually not horrible, but it can be problematic. So it may be something you may want to go in and repair. I don't know, But again, still, for a stereo output that's pretty decent stereo, coming off a plug-and-play camera, I'm kind of in awe, to be honest. Okay, so that's the Jaunt system. That's on the cloud when you have your projects. Obviously, when you download these, you're done. Now it's all just in editorial, right? And it's all your own thing. Let's look at Ozo. And I'm not nearly as expert. I'm brand new to Ozo. So what I'm going to do here, let me unplug. And really, all I can show you on Ozo is a controller. I'm not even... Oh, the other interesting thing is Nokia and Jaunt they are friendly with each other. And as a matter of fact, you can upload Ozo footage to the Jaunt cloud, which is kind of cool, which I will probably be doing. Okay, so... This camera, very interesting. Obviously followed the Apple design paradigm of looks beautiful, maybe a little delicate around the edges, in my opinion. Okay, let's see. Now this has wireless, so this is going to wirelessly communicate with the laptop. And let's see if that's on.
So if it's
I think it
wireless,
is.
what's the wire for?
The wireless is just for control, I think. I don't think it's for, yeah, I don't think it's not for data per se. And again, I got trained on this a few days ago, so I'm pretty much a dummy with this. Okay, so here we can see it's connecting. Though this looks like pretty good software, actually. So now it's broadcasting, it's made a connection, I think. It's connected. And now I've got an SDI over to a Blackmagic mini remote, just converting it over to Thunderbolt. So that's where my data is coming through right here. The good thing is the controller, this is if you want to control the camera, which you have to. There's no auto on this camera, by the way. So things have to be set either on set, or what I did this morning is I waited for the sun to break Sandia and come up to kind of daylight levels. I pulled my shutter speed on it, and then I disconnected and off it went on the balloon. So you use it to either set internal settings and release, or you just leave it live connected on set. And let's see, so now I should be able to, and let's do the 8 sensor trick here. I've been told actually 4 is better for resolution purposes, but let's do 8 sensors, and if I open up exposure, and here's my shutter speed, so let's take it down pretty low and give it a second, and you can already see light showing up. And there's a real-time capture, or actually real-time event. So I think if I move, yeah, a little lag, but somewhat real-time for stage work. And then this is like a white balancing. They call it illuminant. And this is the battery left. 83 minutes, how much storage? I filled up the whole thing. Basically, we just ran for the whole balloon flight, so I'm not sure where it ended. And then you've got a number of controls here, clipping, etc., throughout. And like I say, I'm brand new to this, but this is their UI. So all I know is that productions in LA love this camera for this purpose. So there is real-time preview. There probably, I know there is a real-time capture in this. I'm not going to bore you with trying to find it, but similarly as Jaunt, you can get a real-time capture and get it up in a headset right away. That's probably what this HMD is, or maybe it's real-time. I don't know. I think it may be. But in any case, well, actually, let's do that. Let's take it over to this one. Yeah, there you go. So that's a real-time stitching, and I'm sure it's not final, but it's enough for that. And I don't have a headset mounted, so it's not going to do that. But if I had an Oculus on here, I think it's a fair guess to say I could actually preview it in the headset right away. So this is where Nokia is kind of way out in front of the Jaunt camera, is just this wonderful preview environment. Pretty nice, so a lot of people like this. Again, the things you're going to give up on this camera is full stereo. It's center weighted for the stereo. It's mono in the back. We'll see if that goes away in the next version. The storage is unified on the battery plug that I just slid in, and that's kind of an expensive little unit. I think it's about $5,000 just for that. And what else can I say about it? There's the holes on top and bottom to take the heat away. It's a beautiful design, industrial design, but like I say, it still feels like it's a little fragile in some ways to me. Oh, here's one thing that's really fantastic about the camera. Built-in ambisonic audio. If you can see, it's slightly, some perforations all around it. So it's recording ambisonic right off the bat. And then the other cool thing, which I haven't tried yet, is you can get apparently Bluetooth, or maybe it's, I forget the tech, but it's a tag that you can clip to someone, and you can lav them. And as they, walk around, it'll track that into the ambisonic stitch, which is very cool. So that's really slick. And that's about all I know about this one. And obviously I sent this up on the balloon because I put that on a pole, and I went, no way. So, for portability, this is pretty good. We just shot this. I'm consulting on a project in Greenland, and we set up a pilot or a shooter to take this up on a helicopter. So that's, anyway. So this is a good aerial solution. It's global shutter.
Where is it available for rental?
Radiant has it for sure. I think a number of places you can rent these. I wouldn't even, maybe somebody here in town, I don't know. They tend to get these things all over the place, so I think they've made a large number of them. To be honest, the Jaunt cameras, not that long ago, there was only 20 of them. So I'm sure now there's probably double that or more, but there's probably a lot more Ozos in the wild, I think. I've seen some Ozo footage that I thought was pretty good, but a lot of people are claiming they think it's too soft. So, I don't know. I'll give you a report after I get back and work with this stuff.
Can you play back your last tape from this one?
It's a good question. Yeah, actually, I'd love to do that. I don't know. No, I don't want to format. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think they do. And that again is the other issue with these cameras is that, it's like I've been on shoots this summer with a junk camera and, everybody on the crew or the client goes, well, let's see the footage, let's see the take. No, can't show it to you. So there's, that part of things with VR has a ways to go. It's not like we're used to on set. But anyway, how are we doing on time? I think that kind of wraps it up. That's kind of everything I was going to show you. Any Q&A? I talked to a lot of you at the break, but anything else? Yeah?
I have a question about live VR transmission for special events.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
What is the quality of this? Because they're already doing it, right? At
oh, sure.
Many events. What sort of resolution and just talk about the present and future of live VR?
Yeah, of streaming. I'm not expert, but Next VR has gotten the most investment on that. They've gotten a lot of investment, so they're probably going to be ahead of the game of the rest.
Did you see Scott Squires in the company too?
Pardon me?
Scott Squires has a company.
Oh yeah, Pixvana. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's another one. Yeah, that's right. And actually, I know Scott well, so I would trust that company for sure. Yeah, well, let's just put it this way. There's a lot of emerging tech and companies behind streaming right now, because that's going to be the solution for sporting events, namely, and that will integrate into existing, audiences pretty quickly in media. So there's a lot of heat being put on streaming. I'm just not expert in it, but yeah, I'd look up NextVR and Pixvana. And there's also one called Orem, which is a lower end. It's like I forget if it's mono or stereo. I think it's mono. But it's a small unit. It's made by the same people that make Video Stitch. And I think it's probably reasonable for general mono streaming. But, I don't know. Yeah, that's about all I could tell you that I know of.
You can even do it out of a theta, right?
I don't doubt that you could. Yeah.
So if you want to experiment, like these $350 recto thetas have built-in Wi-Fi, so you can control them with your phone. You get a full preview like that, and I'm certain that they live stream as well. And that's probably, if you have great bandwidth, I think it'll be 1920 by whatever half of 1920 is. I'm a little tired, and it's soft. It'll have a stitch in it from the two hemispheres, but you can play with it, and start coming out with
yeah.
things that will work.
Yeah. I don't know. Form your own company and get a load of investment. I mean, it's definitely there's a lot of money for that out there. I know that.
That's everyone's solution in VR right now.
Yeah.
Form a company and get some capital.
Well, that's right. It's an amazing time. I mean, I'm just stunned what's happening. So, anyway, yeah, in summation, I just see this as a massive shift in the industry, and it's just getting bigger all the time. I mean, we've been tracking it, right on top of it for the last 2.5 years, and it's just keeps swelling larger and larger. So I think it's going to catch up to virtually all of us. Even if you choose not to participate in it, it's probably going to come knocking on your door pretty quick anyway. But I think I'm having one of the best times of my career working with it. It's super, super enjoyable. But again, it's bleeding edge tech for sure. But it's come up to, I think, to a level that, you can feel good about working in it. Yeah.
What's your favorite photogrammetry stitching program?
So photogrammetry, there's 3 options for you. One is Autodesk Remake, which is nice when it works. It's like an automatic thing, and it uses their cloud, and it's pretty inexpensive, monthly fee, and it's pretty nice. I mean, we helped, help them on testing a lot of it. And then there's Agisoft PhotoScan, which is a Russian thing, and it's fairly inexpensive, like $200 for a pretty good version, and but you have to use your own machine processing. can take a while. But then the best one, it appears to be, is a new one called Designing Reality. And that's a subscription base out of Eastern Europe, and it's creating some really stunning stuff. I just looked at Designing Reality, and I just saw a demo this week from somebody with a Phantom drone, which I kind of figured wouldn't be adequate. And it created a stunning capture of a Spanish castle that was very impressive. So yeah, if you really want to go, I would look at Designing Reality, I think, at this point.
We've been building over at IA Virtual Museum, so we've been photogrammifying a lot of the Mochna's collection with smaller pieces, just, you know, moving a camera around manually or whatever, but we just got a new grant so we can upgrade a lot of our stuff, and we failed for like months. We couldn't get stuff to like stitch properly. We did.
To look good, yeah.
Finally did get it to look good, yeah. But I just didn't know if it was like, because PhotoScan, if it was like that. And then we're about to start to do the huge sculptures with drones. So I think maybe trying a new software might be.
Yeah. Just make sure your technique is correct, you know, if you're not getting good results.
I ended up having to use math, and that's what the problem was.
Using what? Math?
Math, yeah.
Oh.
Because we were kind of just like willy-nilly taking like photos around at each level. And so we ended up getting a compass out and putting very concrete tape on the floor and
Oh, that actually might be your problem.
taking a piece of string from the center and
No. Actually, that's your problem. You don't want consistency. You want
randomness.
aberration and randomness in your capture.
We've tried like everything. I mean, I get paid even if it fails, but it's research.
Well, it's like all those other things where you buy every package and you just see what works. You know, it's that kind of deal.
I tried total randomness. I should do that.
Well, not total, but you know, studied randomness.
Yeah.
So anyway, you guys live in the most amazing location for photogrammetric capture. So go do some stuff and get a Vive and check it out. It's really just amazing me right now. But anyway, like I say, there's plenty to be done with linear content too. So exciting time. Any other questions? Yes.
This may be a little bit more into the cinematic or storytelling thing, but how do you hide dolly moves or camera moves?
Yeah, well, you either disguise them somehow, if you're clever, or you just have to paint them out. So you do a clean plate, and then you try to, it's just a compositing issue. But yeah, dolly move. That's why we like to work in Maya. We digitize the world and work in Maya because I don't have any cleanup, and I can do all the virtual camera work that I want. So that's most of what you saw in that reel today was done that way, and it's a nice way to go.
So you're reprojecting all once you build your.
Yeah, a ton of stuff.
So you have are you doing camera projection to build the
Yep.
actual? Okay, so you have the highest resolution.
Yeah, all kinds of techniques like that. Stitch video.
How do you blend the projections? Does the software help you blend the camera projections?
It's a lot of photogrammetry or just texturing work, really.
Texas or any optimized like.
No, we don't go that far. I'm lazy.
So just straight from the camera projections.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's not that lazy. It's
Yeah.
pretty optimized.
Yeah. There's a guy, Scott Metzger. You know Scott? So Scott's a guy, and he's been what's the word? Oh shoot, I'm sorry. He's like, what is it? When you're hiding, when you're in development, you're in hiding. I'm sorry. Stealth mode. And for 2 years now, but he's got some solutions coming for all this, supposedly. And Scott holds a real high bar. He's a huge Nuke Mari guy. And he's doing very, very rigorous laser scans, then spherical HDR panos, and then just bringing it all together in an amazing result. What's his site? Oh, I'm sorry. End of the day. But anyway, you could look his name up. But he's doing beautiful work. The thing about all this is that it's just a function of how much time you want to invest in.
I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, if you go manual, like full brute force, you can do
Yeah.
amazing stuff. But it's like there's only so many hours in the day, and you gotta live with a certain amount of.
Yeah, and the other thing,
Draw the lines.
yeah,
In place.
and the other thing to understand about photogrammetry is it creates a really messy data, super, super problematic data. So If you really are putting it in a big pipeline, if you work, in a large facility, then you have budget and manpower to do that, that's fine. But usually I get photogrammetric sols and I just kind of doctor it where you can't tell that I'm not cleaning it up so much. It's a new type of data to work with. Just so you know, Autodesk has a new graphics engine. It's built into Remake, and it'll probably end up in Maya and other packages. And it's designed to deal with very heavy meshes, which is what photogrammetry is. And so the days of struggling in Maya with data is going to be over, probably pretty soon. And
20 years.
yeah. So we'll see.
Is it possible to record a unique viewer's experience, all their exact head movements and where they look and so forth as a recording?
Oh, and actually there's a lot of cleverness to be had, because that was another really key thing about VR that you might want to take advantage of is, any of you today, as you experience any of this VR, all that data could be captured. So, and John, as a matter of fact, when you look at their work, if you look on their app, let's see, I forget where it's disseminated, but it will create what's a heat map. Everyone probably knows a heat map. And it just shows where you're looking at the most. So that's a primitive application of it, but there's a lot of great tech that's coming out that deals with taking one of them is what Cosmo I think it's called Play, I'm sorry, forgetting the name, but the guy that started VRLA has a new thing where you can do motion capture through VR with the controllers. So you create these little avatars and then you act out something and it applies that, boom, onto the avatar or the simplistic character. I mean, it's simplistic. But the act of where you look and understanding your audience, you could take that data and do incredibly clever things. There's a lot of things I've seen that are like, wow, really fantastic. So it's thinking about doing something with that data, because it's all tracked. So it's like motion capture in a sense.
That's great. You could put an actor in the headset and do a POV.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
From the actor's point of view.
Yeah. So that's a neat byproduct of working in a tracked environment. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the room scale kind of model of things, is there an audio equivalent to that where you build sort of a 3D audio
Yeah,
space
there
and the person is walking?
There sure is. When you're working in Unity or Unreal, there's all kinds of. Well, actually, the best one is it Facebook or Google? I think Google bought it, and they give it away free. It's called Big Ears. And 2 big ears or 1 big ear, something like that. And it's out of Britain, but and it fully models. You have a 3D model, right? If you had photogrammetry of, say, a Gothic church, it would actually take that and work out a lot of the dynamics of audio simulation, and then apply that to VR. So as you walk under a colonnade or something, you're going to hear, a totally different audio signature, depending where you're walking. So that's very common in the Vive. Yeah, but not as common in cinematic work. Yeah, it's a neat thing.
From what I am understanding, I'm totally new to this, in the cinematic kind of work, you still have a point of view that is fixed within this space. That's where your viewer always is. So you're
Yeah.
one audio space around them, but then and visual space, but then they can turn and see different parts of it and hear different parts of it. But they're not moving.
Yeah, the way to think about it is cinematic VR is orientational freedom. Just like you saw today, I was taking you on pathways. You had no control over that. You were not walking yourself, but you had orientational freedom. The Vive gives you orientation and positional freedom. And as a matter of fact, in a Vive, you wouldn't move the camera. You'd let the audience move. So it's a totally different type of thing. So what I'm going to be challenging my students with, and ourselves, from this point forward, I'm designing a new studio for the spring, which is how do we integrate cinematic and interactive in some interesting way, which I think there's huge potential for. So you could be on a linear story, but then you'd pause, and maybe if you look at a lot of what's going on is gaze-based. So if you look at something for more than 3 seconds, maybe the image will change on that laptop, and frame will disappear, and now you're in a real-time environment, and then maybe you go back to a linear story again, so that clearly is kind of the next step. Yeah. Okay, one more. Yeah.
I'm just wondering a little bit about the how you get the pictures into a 3D model.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like 3D scanning, or did you take the pictures with a red fancy model from scratch, or does the software take the images?
Let me show you a really awesome, I just saw they did this the other day. So if you go to, let's see, all right, remake.autodesk.com, and then if you go to, I mean, this is a great one to get started with for photogrammetry. It's really pretty straightforward. Actually, I like it a lot. And then if you go to learning, then you go to how to take photos. And this is a really nice little doc that'll lead you through how to properly take images around a subject, right? Whether it's that or whatever it might be. As you can see, it's not a lot of fun. I mean, it's actually, to be honest, this is a lot of work to do this. This says no reflective or transparent things, right? No reflective metallic things. I mean, photogrammetry does have limitations. So here's a dulling spray. Put that on. Yeah.
Maybe it could be a structured light or something without touching it. You could do like a no touch.
We've been experimenting with like every kind of light possible because a lot of the stuff in the collection is shiny. It's annoying.
Oh, okay, there you go. And then this is the common way to do character work because you don't have to, like even that Weiwei shoot I did, he did move and I got problems. So this, and there's a number of places in LA you can have this done. There may even be one here in Albuquerque. But it's basically service bureaus that have set up that have huge number of DSLRs all synchronized. So anyway, this is going to go through all the different methods, but here you can see the final result. Pretty stunning. And then here's all the cameras that you shot, and good, bad. Here's a drone path, and you know this just goes on. It's a nice little document. So yeah, this would be a good one for you to look at. Okay.
Are you just pulling frames from video for the drone, or do you actually?
No, you don't want to do that for photogrammetry if you can help it. It's stills.
Some of the software I think has GPS, like where they know where.
Yeah, actually that's helpful if you have it. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. All right.